Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's LinkedIn Live. Welcome to those who are joining us live as well as streaming afterwards. Today, my guest is Charlie Giancarlo. I'm going to try to refrain from calling him Charles. He is the CEO and chairman since 2017 of Pure Storage. He's got quite the bio, super impressive. Also, former executive VP and chief technology officer and development officer at Cisco. And it seemed to me anyway, his first startup, Adaptive, created the first high-speed backbone for the internet in 1991. In 1993, his team created the Internet Switch, the first, which is the backbone, of course, of the internet and the web today. In 1999, with his team, they created both the first Wi-Fi products as well as the first phone IP systems. He serves now on the boards of Accenture, Arista, Pure Storage, and Zscaler, and is the co-founder of the Digital Dollar Foundation. And really excited to hear more about a lot of that. Let's see, I think that's a little better. We can see. So welcome. Thanks for joining us today, Charlie.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Wonderful. So I just want to start with, I loved your tagline, which is Uncomplicate Data Storage Forever.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a mission in the world. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how are you helping your customers uncomplicate data storage?
Absolutely. Well, of course, this is, an area, much like the infrastructure, let's say, of a house, right? Mm-hmm. The electricity and the plumbing system that for most people, they just want it to work and they never really want to have to deal with it. And when they do deal with it, it's a real problem. Well, in the case of data infrastructure, it's a lot of work for a lot of people inside an organization just to keep it up and running smoothly. Sure. And, when we started the company, when the company was started, it was founded on several principles. One was that we believed that we should move away from mechanical storage. Even a few years ago, computers still had a mechanical device in it. It was called the hard disk. Right. It wasn't based entirely upon semiconductors and silicon. So one of the goals of the company was to replace all hard disks with flash, which is a semiconductor. The second goal was to make it as easy to use for the people that have to run the data systems as an iPhone. And of course, when you buy an iPhone, or for that matter, an Android phone, typically comes with a 1 or 2 page, something about the size of a credit card instruction manual, right? And most people don't even need it. It's that easy to operate. Well, when we got started, there were 2-week training courses for how to run data storage. And the manuals were about 3 inches thick that you would have to train yourself on in order just to be able to operate a data storage environment inside a customer. And we felt, well, why was it so complicated? So what we've done as a company was we have dramatically simplified the way that data storage operates. Our entire operating manual fits on a tent card, something about the size of an iPhone instruction manual. And it generally doesn't require any maintenance or operations on an ongoing basis to run. And so that has dramatically simplified, our customers' lives. Even more important, we get every year holiday cards where people thank us for giving them their holidays and their weekends back. They simply don't have to worry about their systems failing. And then finally, one of the things we've done, which is very unique and remains unique to this day, 10 years after we created it, is something we call Evergreen. And with Evergreen, our systems literally never get old. So how does that work? Well, with the subscription to our service, our systems get upgraded every year, every several years, not just software, but the hardware as well. We recently celebrated our first system that we sold, which was over 10 years ago, being upgraded for, I think, the 3rd or 4th time. And so that system looks like a system we sold last week. No different. And it's sort of like you not only, let's use the iPhone analogy once again. It'd be like that iPhone in your hand, never getting old and never, you could be on a phone call, put the old phone up to your ear, and by the time you take it down, it looks like the new phone. So
that's the dream, right? Yeah.
That's right. We do these upgrades without ever taking our customers' environments down. Yeah. So they continue to operate. So this is what's really allowed our company to, grow, very, very quickly and generally at the expense of the competitors in the market.
Yeah. Well, that's the power of purpose, right? This uncomplicated storage, and who doesn't appreciate the lack of pain around that? You look like you might also remember. I mean, when I started in this industry, storage looked like this, and it was floppy, and
I remember all of
that.
unfortunately.
It's just amazing what we've been able to do. Talk about something that was complicated, and how you found a way to do this now is just terrific. So I also want to touch a little bit on sustainability. I know that this is key to Pure Storage, and certainly a concern for many customers and all of us, in fact. You recently published a report on sustainability that's showing it's a top priority for many global companies, which I was thrilled to see. Could you highlight some of the findings from that report?
Oh, absolutely. Well, a number of things to start off with. This was a survey of 1,000 different sustainability program directors. Most of them, almost 80%, said that their company's leadership is treating sustainability as a priority, which is very, very good news, of course. And most of us, I think, that are on this journey, and about half of those we surveyed, said that they are on track, meaning that half are not on track. Now, most of them, 90%, said that they can't reach their sustainability goals without reducing energy usage of their technology infrastructure. Technology infrastructure now is a very significant fraction of total energy use by most organizations. And it's also true, and we've known this just anecdotally for years as Pure, that there is misalignment between the way IT operates generally in most companies and the sustainability goals that companies have. And let me explain that for a moment. For many years, and I would, although this was not part of the survey, I would argue that most companies today in the US, their energy footprint is not managed by the IT teams that use the energy. It's used by facilities. And so when you have an IT management that doesn't pay for the power that they're utilizing, or and not even in control of it, well, how can you hold them responsible, right, for the energy that they utilize? So that's a very important thing. And I would say that I've been at Pure now for 5 years. And every year, when I speak to customers, one of the benefits that I tout is that Pure uses less space, power, and cooling than anybody else out there. And I'll tell you that for 4 years, nobody cared. I mean, it's literally, crickets when I mentioned that. And they'd say, okay, but what about features? What about performance? What about price? That would be what they focus on. There's been a big change over this last year. All of a sudden, the focus around energy utilization has gotten much higher. Now, this is especially true, as you might imagine, in Europe. In Europe, again, anecdotally, we've now had the first sales that were based primarily upon our benefits from an energy standpoint, where the fact that we use so much less energy than everybody else out there has been a major factor in a number of large sales, starting in Europe, a couple in Asia. The US is not quite as sensitive yet to energy, I have to say, in the IT space, but it's starting. I'll state two other things, if you don't mind. There's a lot of confusion, I think, around sustainability. A lot of what is generally called greenwashing out there. A lot of focus on, well, have they bought carbon credits, right? Are they net neutral? Now, the more energy you use, the more carbon credits you need to have in order to overcome it, right? If you get down to really what's fundamental, the two most fundamental elements of sustainability is using less power and creating less waste. End of story. You can't get any more basic than that. If you use less power, you need less carbon credits. If you create less waste, you fill fewer landfills. And this is where Pure really excels. Compared to other all-flash systems, we use between 1/2 and 1/5 as much power. And we use about 1/2 to 1/5 as much e-waste. In other words, less material overall compared to our competition. But I think this hides what I think the big opportunity is. If you look at data centers today, for 80%, close to 90% of all the data is still stored on hard disk. And our systems use less than 1/10 the space, power, and cooling of hard disk systems. Storage systems in data centers are generally about 20% of the overall power usage and generally closer to 40% of all the space usage. Imagine if we replaced all of that with flash, which is possible now. We could save 20% of all data center power usage. I mean, this is and especially if you get into the hyperscalers, it's a massive amount of power that can be saved. So the sustainability story is very strong.
Great. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what you're doing internally to help that happen. But just to say, I mean, I think the companies that are leading and breaking out of the pack today are, of course, focused on sustainability. And in fact, ESG can be summed up in one word, which is sustainability.
Right.
But to your earlier point, those goals have to be embedded in the organization. It can't just be facilities that's concerned about this. Not that they won't try their best, but they literally don't have the power and influence in most organizations to bring down those numbers. And it's the old saying about you get the behaviors that you measure.
You don't expect what you don't inspect. That's
exactly.
Right.
So I wish you sort of all good luck in getting attention so that we can bring these down. But what are you doing internally to help? I'm imagining that you have a curve that looks like this as well.
We do.
And so what are you doing internally to continue to improve your ability to reduce energy consumptions?
Well, we've committed to a further reduction of power and e-waste on a per petabyte. So, when you sell storage, you sell, gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes, pretty soon exabytes. And, if you store more, obviously, on a total basis, you may use more power. So we're bringing the power down per petabyte. We've committed to reducing it another 2/3 by 2030. So that's pretty significant reduction in power. We've also, over the last couple of years, eliminated all plastics from our shipping and handling. We've reduced 80% of the plastics in our products overall. So really reducing plastics. But perhaps the biggest thing that we can do and that we're committed to in reducing the amount of total e-waste that we create is by lengthening the life cycle, the amount of time that our product lasts by years.
Sure.
And we do that with our Evergreen program. That now our flash, we guarantee our flash for life, which is a very long time. And for customers that upgrade to new flash, we take the old flash and we reuse it. We reuse it as part of our Evergreen One program where we provide the storage for our customers. We can continue to use that product for as long as it lasts, as long as we meet the service level agreements that we guarantee to our customers. Right. So, just continuing improvement in terms of, our overall energy and sustainability footprint.
Yeah. I imagine that's quite a recruiting tool for you as well. You're not just attracting people who want to be in the storage space, but also those that really care about sustainability.
It's absolutely correct. And also it really helps now that it is a competitive element, in our sales, because people get excited about competing. And now that customers actually do care about this, it makes a very big difference to the enthusiasm of our team to make it even better.
Yeah, terrific. So I want to talk a little bit about leadership, your leadership style in particular. So Pure Storage has been a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader now for 9 consecutive years, which is saying something about renewability in and of itself. You've been CEO for 5 of those. What has enabled you to successfully lead a team through that kind of growth while still maintaining your culture and values?
Well, there's several things, and I explained this to my team at the very first day that I joined. Is that, I believe that for high technology, the 2 primary areas of focus for the organization have to be on innovation on the one hand and operational excellence on the other hand. And often companies view that those 2 things as not being consistent with one another, right? Operational excellence is about operations and improving, everything step by step each and every day. Innovation is about, really thinking out of the box and being, very creative. And so you have people who are very operationally focused and I think unjustly considered to be sometimes not very creative. But I think to be operationally excellent, you have to be very innovative on everything you do to improve it, just a little bit each and every day. And so by, really working with our team and letting them understand that operational excellence is extraordinarily critical to being able to create the kind of margin that you need to be able to innovate each and every day. And by really focusing on those two elements, I think it allows us to be and to continue to grow. Another thing is very important, which is really understanding your competitive advantage in the marketplace. What makes you different than the other companies that are out there? And continuing to, first of all, making sure that not only everybody in the company understands that, but also your investors and your customers and your partners. And for us, what really distinguishes us is that we're the one company in this business that looks at data storage as high technology. Our competitors and most of the other players in this market considered storage starting about 10 or 15 years ago to be a commodity and stopped investing in it from an R&D perspective. Whereas our view, I'll go back to the phone analogy since we've used that already. I think most players considered it, to be the old feature phone. And of course, Steve Jobs came up and said, no, I think it's more like a computer. Yeah. And for us, we felt, no, it's not a commodity where the cheapest price always wins. There are values to be had in making it more reliable, easier to use, more scalable, and simpler to operate. And we've been proven right over and over again.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's fascinating. You still call them phones, by the way, which is one of the least used features on
and young people never
the
use
device.
the phone part of it at
Right.
all.
Yeah, exactly. So you talked about your time at Cisco in a previous interview that you did as a time when you were, quote, running scared all the time at a company full of highly skilled entrepreneurial talent. That really reminds me of my time at Compaq. I was there during the sort of very early years as part of the leadership team as we grew from nothing to about 15 billion. I'm wondering, how do you foster that culture at Pure Storage, or do you do something else? Are you running scared all the time?
I don't believe that Pure runs at a different tempo than Cisco did at the time. I would say that Cisco was running scared because we were not the largest player at that time. We had plenty of competition, some of the same size as us, but others like IBM and Lucent, that were much larger than we were, and all very focused on putting us out of business. Mm-hmm. I would say that at Pure, while we have some of the same characteristics, we have very large competitors, with Dell and HP, who every day would like to see us removed from the market. At the same time, I think what really drives our company is the innovation side. They are just excited by what they do, doing it, better than anyone else out there. But frankly, also, it's not even as if we were competing with them on an innovation basis. On an innovation basis, we're way out in front, and it's up to us to come up with new things every day. On the sales and marketing side, it is, one of our sales leaders calls it a knife fight in a phone booth. It's very tough each and every day, and we just have to be very clever. And this is where the operational excellence comes in. We just have to make sure that the way we engage with our customers, the way we engage with our channel is really top notch, and that we present, create a presence in front of both the channel and the customer that wants them to come back to do business with us.
Great. Yeah, it sounds like you're, and I think this is a word I love, which is optimizing, right? You don't have, it's not one or the other. And I think people who go down that path lose a lot. A little more about sort of leadership and the culture at Pure. So at Pure Storage, I've read that the teams have to be in the office together. Now that people are coming back to the office. How does that work? Was there much pushback? And how do you see work evolving in tech?
Well, one of the things we did early on was we were very consistent with what life was going to look like when the pandemic was over. And I think that's it turned out to be very important for us, because I think inconsistency breeds, a view that people can do what they want, or they're looking for the answer.
People make up their own story in the absence of information. Yeah.
So starting the summer of 2020, so that was, COVID had really just been in place for about 2 or 3 months. We started saying, okay, when we come back, and we think it's going to be a while before we come back, but when we come back, we're going to go to a hybrid model of work. And what does that mean? What does hybrid mean for us? Well, what hybrid means for us is that teams will decide how many days of the week they need to be together in order to be creative, to innovate, to collaborate, and so forth. And they'll decide what days of the week, how many days of the week, what days of the week they'll be in. And the expectation then is that the entire team is in those days of the week. It's not an individual decision. it's a team decision. Now, of course, there's always exceptions for a sick child or doctor's appointment. That goes without saying. But, in terms of normal operations, the team will decide. And so some teams, for example, we do still make hardware. Hardware, you have labs. Generally, even during COVID, they were in 5 days a week, and they continue to be in 5 days a week.
Wow.
Many of our software teams have decided that 3 days a week is what they need to be in. And of course, people are invited to be in the office any day of the week that they want. But on those days of the week that the teams decide to be in, the entire team is expected to be in during that period of time. We did find during COVID, and I don't think we're unique in this, that while individuals often reported that they felt that their individual productivity was the same or higher, that team productivity clearly suffered.
Yeah. And
so this is the best, I think, of both worlds, that getting teams to come in as total teams so that nobody's on Zoom, everybody's in the room together, really breeds the kind of, not just the collaboration and innovation that we need to stay ahead, but frankly, also the apprenticeship that is so important for young people. If there are 3 stages in your career, apprentice, master, and then teacher. Mm-hmm. It's really important, especially for the apprentice and the teachers, to be in the office together. Perhaps as a master, you can work at home more often than not. But, we run a whole company throughout an entire life cycle, and we want to make sure that we're a great training ground for the apprentices. We want to make sure that the teachers are in, providing that. It's not simply working at Pure is not a gig. It really is a full-time job where we expect a full life cycle for our employees.
Yeah, love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. I just have a couple of questions left for you, Charlie. First, as a tech CEO, any fortune teller insights as we head into 2023?
Yes. Well, I'll do my best. There are lots of pundits out there, and we're all making bets. What we've seen is we have seen the slight slowdown that everybody has been talking about overall. I personally, I think the U.S. will be, roughly flat over the next year. The IT market perhaps being slightly better than that, but not as robust as it's been the last several years. I think we're going to see slight recessionary trend in the rest of outside the U.S. It'll depend obviously on the specific country, but as the U.S. goes, generally the rest of the world goes as well. So we're going to see slight recessionary, but overall the tech market, I think, will remain stronger than the economy as a whole for a variety of tech. To a large extent, is what drives the productivity of the world right now.
Yeah, that's certainly consistent with what I've heard from other CEOs. Is there's such a push for what we broadly call digital transformation that I think buoyed by the sustainability efforts that you in particular bring on, as people really work to optimize their systems. Even it's not just growth at any cost now; it's growth for profitability. Those things, again, have to be optimized. So let's hope it's a slight to none, and that'd be great. Yep. So my final question for you, the tagline for my business is up and to the right, because that's the spot on the 2x2 matrix where we always want to be and where you have spent a lot of time. Was there a moment in your career when you knew that you were moving up and to the right, when you were headed in that direction for your career?
It's an interesting question. I would say the first 10 years that I spent working, I was learning a lot, but they were very bumpy. Generally, you don't learn without pain, and there was a lot of pain in my early startups. With startups, you're always in between. There are really only two emotions that you go through when you're in a startup. Either you're about to take over the world, or you're about to get killed, and your emotional state goes back and forth between those two areas. I think, when I started to feel very strong about moving up into the right, I've to be honest with you, and this may shock some of your readers, I was never really focused on career. I was always focused on what's driven me always is the joy of building great products and getting them out into the market. And I've followed that path really all along my career. But of course, at first in my startups, I was worried that this just wouldn't happen. That we'd be crushed by one force or another before we ever got to that point. But with the company that created the first Ethernet switch, which was Calpana, which I was an early executive in, when we created that product and we were purchased by Cisco, it was one of those things where Alan Kay says perspective is worth 40 IQ points. Well, I got those 40 IQ points and realized that the internet was going to be this unstoppable force that was going to drive the industry forward for decades. And so that's when I felt that I was on, let's say, an elevator that was moving up, and I could play a role in that. And that was very exciting. And it was, continuing to see, the advance of technology. And I have to say, we were very idealistic then. We felt it was going to be a force for good. And of course, any tool can be used for good or ill. But I continue to believe in the power of, what we're creating in technology, and look forward to making the world a better place.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And thank you for both your leadership in terms of being an organization leader, but also in sustainability. Thank you for joining us today, Charlie.
Well, thank you, Karen. It's been a real pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Take good care.